The StrutFit Show, bringing retail into the future.
Hello and welcome to the StrutFit Show. I'm your host, Nayyar. I'm also the CEO of StrutFit, where our vision is the same as the vision for this show, to bring retail into the future. Every episode, I'll be joined by a guest who is leading or innovating in some part of the retail spectrum, from design to manufacturing to marketing and even to sales. We'll discuss trends, learnings, and ideas, and really try to figure out what the top performers in your field are doing. Along the way, we'll discover some lessons you can apply to your own career and hopefully even have some fun. All right, let's do it. Hello and welcome to the StrutFit Show. I'm joined here by Ben from Nayture. Ben, how about you give us a little intro about yourself and what you get up to at Nayture?
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm the founder of Nayture. We are a strategy consultancy for sustainability, basically, and we focus on leadership in sustainability.
Cool. That's perfect. And now the follow-up question is, how do you define sustainability?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Well, for me personally, it's all about balance, right? So if you think about the word sustainability in general, not just in terms of the environment or the planet or social justice, it's more also like financially, it's like about balance. So what you take out, you have to bring in again, or you have to have a sufficient amount that you can take out. And I think it's the same with the environment and like everything which is connected to the issues we have right now with the climate crisis. So if we want to be sustainable or more sustainable, we have to keep things in balance. That would be my description for sustainability.
Cool. And how is, like, it's such a hot topic right now for definitely retailers. Like, we work with a fair few retailers, and when we speak to them or when we're pitching to new ones, they're like, oh yeah, and like this will help our sustainability goals. And that seems to be a thing a lot of brands are adopting. Where do you think this is going to sound like a dumb question, because I'm like, obviously something's going on and people are like, cool, well, the world's on fire, so let's do something about it. But yeah, where do you, like, sustainability, people are talking about it maybe 10 times more than they were talking about it 10 years ago. So what's brought about this change? Is it consumers? Is it retailers having a conscience? Like, what's been happening?
Well, I think it's like the awareness. I think you feel it, right? You feel the change of our climate, and that this is the urgency we have right now. So if you think about the wildfires that are going on around the world, yesterday I wrote like 80% of Greece is covered with smoke right now.
Wow.
Which is, it's insane. So I think there's like this urgency that we feel like we have to do something. And also I feel like as consumers, we also somehow know that it's like connected to, consumption and the things we buy and the way how we live. And so that's why I think especially like retailers and everything who is producing something or selling something now this is important for the product and for the brand and has to do something right now. Yeah, that's why it's so important and so many people are talking about it. And I think everyone is looking for solutions, right? So we don't have found it yet. It's like we are still seeking and looking and searching and researching and feel like, okay, we have become closer, but it's still very difficult to say, okay, we have found a way to deal with sustainability in general. I think it's a process at the end.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking to a friend of mine about, and this is not a solution for retailers because it would never work, but he has this like old guitar made out of some Brazilian rosewood or something like that. It's like 100 years old. And he's like, well, started recording. I'll just hit record on my secondary camera as well. Cool. You got both cameras. A watch which has been passed down and there's some sentimental value. Like, cool, I'm gonna. And so if I have this leather jacket I stole from my dad and I really like it, and if it gets a rip, I'll probably get it repaired. But had I bought it for $40 from Zara or something, I probably wouldn't get it repaired. I'd probably just be like, all right, it's not worth my time. I'll just throw it away. Is repairing something we've seen brands do? I know some luxury brands probably offer it. Is that an angle people are taking?
I think it's becoming more important. So if you think about Patagonia, for example, that offer like a lifelong repair service for certain products, this is something that's of course become more and more important. And also I think if you have a product or like a thing you really like your leather jacket, or I have a denim jacket which is, I don't know, 20 years old or so, and I really love it. So this is like, if you can build an emotional connection also to a brand or a product, and we feel like it's worth keeping and maintaining at the end.
Yeah, you almost want that. You almost want that connection with the world now.
Yeah.
It's like you get one, we should repair it. We shouldn't just throw it away.
But if you also think about cars, so Porsche, for example, it's a beautiful car. And I don't want to lie, I think it's like 70% of all cars, or like even higher, of all cars that are built from 1960 or 1970 are still on the road. So if you think about this, this topic is like, like a Porsche is a really good product at the end. And you really want to keep it. You don't throw a Porsche away because you say, oh, this is like really not, this is in the end a very sustainable product, because it's about life, like to keep it the product a very long time alive. And this I think is a very good product strategy at the end as well. Yeah.
100%.
I think Yvonne from Patagonia once said it's, they want to produce a product that you buy, I don't know, once every 5 or 10 years, and not something that you have to buy every year. So that's why if you buy a Patagonia jacket, maybe it's slightly more expensive, but it's something you can keep for a very long time, can have for a very long time. I think this is a new strategy. This is, I mean, it's not really new, because, it's something that my parents used to do all the time, but our generation changed somehow the way of how we consume. And I think this way our parents bought things, for example, is coming back now.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I never understood this buying new clothes. I probably buy, I don't even know, like 2 items of clothing a year, if that. Because, like, firstly, how often are you going to wear these clothes? Like, you got, I don't know. It's definitely this going back to older values thing where you're like, oh, actually, they probably had it right. Like, maybe we've gone too far in this direction. And I think people are starting to recognize that. I've seen that secondhand shopping is on the rise, and brands are facilitating that. Like, I was talking to a brand out of London, and they're like, well, previously we had this marketplace, and 1% of our sales, or less than 1% of our sales, were people buying secondhand items. And now it's up to like 10 or 15% of their overall sales are through this medium. And I'm like, wow, that's such a huge, and like the market doesn't often lie. And so you're like, okay, well, that's probably representative of people being like, cool, I don't care if it's secondhand. I just want it, maybe because it's cheaper as well. But I think the sustainability angle is definitely in people's minds when they're making that decision.
Yeah, for sure. But also we see, that people, they say they want to buy more sustainable, but at the end they're not always doing that. So that's what we call it, the attitude behavior gap, right? And I feel like if you have something that is really like attracting you, I think is very desirable, like a cool leather jacket again, or like a denim jacket or something. It's like, oh, this is something very special that I don't even get these days in this kind of quality. So that's something also that is adding, like, this is more sustainable, but at the same time, it's more interesting to have as a consumer, for example, because I have a different kind of quality that is benefiting me as a consumer as well.
Could you elaborate on that attitude behavior gap?
Yeah. So read all the studies all the time. It's like, 70% of consumers prefer sustainable products. But at the end, they're not always buying sustainable products. Actually, there's a really good study from Zalando, a German retail company, and for fashion. And they did a really good study on this attitude behavior gap. So they were elaborating on this topic and found out that in certain categories, like, for example, social justice, there's like X% difference between what people say they would like to buy and what at the end they really buy. And I think, what we also at Nayture discover is like, at the end, people want to buy a good product or a cool product, and you do so many purchase decisions every day that you don't have sustainability in your mind every time you buy something right now. So the goal is so that you build a product that is like not just sustainable, but is also a cool product. And I think this is where so many brands right now struggle a little bit, because we have to do something in terms of sustainability. So we launch a green product and call it eco something. They want to have a really cool product, right? So, and to close this attitude behavior gap is not just to convince people to buy more sustainable, but also just, be a cool brand or or create a cool product that is so desirable that people really want to buy it. Let's take a Tesla, for example, right? Tesla, on a certain point, is, I think, still more valuable than the whole German car industry. So together, it's more valuable than Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, and this is insane. And why are they so successful? It's like they didn't wanted to just buy or create an EV at the end. It's like, okay, it's a rational decision to make a electric car these days because, on the sustainability angle. Not that Elon Musk wanted to create a cool car that is so interesting and so cool that people really want to buy it as a car, not just because it's an electric car. And I feel like so many car brands came from the other side and said, okay, we have to create now electric car, and didn't come from the design approach or building something that is just desirable.
Totally. And now that you've said that, I'm thinking about other brands which are sustainable, some of the ones you've highlighted in your wonderful reports like Vogel and Patagonia, where I'm like, oh, they're sustainable, but when I think of these brands, it's like sustainability and coolness kind of go hand in hand. When I'm thinking of these brands and I think of the word sustainable, it's not at like a detriment to what they're doing. It's like actually these brands have really cool products, and then they have sustainability, which it adds to it, but also makes it even cooler. But it's not just like, hey, look, it's sustainable, buy it because it's sustainable. It's like on its own, it's still a really good product.
Yeah, this is true. We created a green brand code, like a framework for Nayture. We felt like, I don't know, what is the DNA of successful green brands? What do they do that makes them so attractive for customers? And we came up with a bunch of categories and thought like, oh, these brands performing really good in these kind of categories. And I think the most interesting category is that they don't talk about sustainability, basically. It's almost like they kill this word from their whole advertising and communication around the brand. And if you think about cool brands in this space, like sustainability, like, Patagonia, Veja, Ben & Jerry's, Tony's Chocolonis, Oatly, they don't even have color green in their corporate identity. It's not, there's nothing that is like pointing in this direction of we are sustainability or like a sustainable product. So what they do is they build a cool product that is interesting for customers, and then they talk about sustainability or, well, actually what they do in their content and around the brand on certain touch points, but never in really advertising or saying, okay, this is the green product or this is our green line or this is something, Patagonia is going and saying, don't buy this jacket, and explaining why. They don't say, oh, this is our sustainable jacket, buy here. No, that's not what they do. They create a cool product and they have a mission and they talk about this mission, but they don't talk about sustainability in general in a very generic way.
I have two anecdotes which may be funny. One was I did something and a friend of mine was surprised, and I'm like, I'm a pretty smart person, and they're like, a smart person wouldn't say that. And then there's a book, Tao Te Ching, which is a wonderful book written 2,000 years ago, and it's like, the sage never seeks merit, therefore merit never deserts him. And it's like, yeah, if you're saying you're a sustainable brand, it's like, mate, you're probably not. Meanwhile, if you're just acting and actually taking action, you don't even need to talk about it because you're like, oh, well, I'm doing it. Why would I talk about it?
Yeah. I think you can talk about your mission and the things you are doing, but, claiming that you're sustainable and saying, oh, this is green, or this is 100% sustainable. It's nothing like 100% sustainability, right? So there's always something. And if you look at this leadership company, they're really saying, well, we try, and we really, Patagonia, for example, is saying we try to build the best product with the least environmental footprint, but they don't say, oh, we are 100% sustainable, because they're very real about sustainability. And I think this is the key somehow. So
I saw the article that you referenced in the report, and you were like, well, Patagonia said in this Fortune article that they don't use the word sustainable. And I went and had a look into it, and in that they were talking about offsets. I've heard this word used. I feel like I know what offsets are, but what is an offset? How do you spend money and like reverse impact? How does that work?
Well, it depends what you offset basically in general, or like in what is more common is offsetting of carbon emissions, right? So you have a carbon footprint and you want to offset, but you can also offset different things now. You can also compensate, for example, plastic pollution or something. There are like certain products or projects in this area as well. But offset is basically you have a carbon footprint and you can't eliminate it by yourself right now. So you ask a different company to do it for you. They do some projects, for example, planting trees to offset your carbon emissions. So they calculate and say, okay, if we have 1 ton of carbon emissions, of CO2 emissions, and we plant X amount of trees, so this will compensate your carbon footprint basically.
Over what period? This is going to be a very technical question. Over, say, I have a carbon footprint of 1,000 or 1 ton of CO2, which is not that high. And say someone plants a tree, and like, what is the value placed on that tree? Because that tree might be around for like 100 years, and it's offsetting carbon for 100 years. So what are they using to sort of calculate that? Whereas I only made 1 ton that 1 year.
Yeah, well, it depends. They're like, if you are in the voluntary carbon market and offset a brand, that's doing it on a voluntary basis. Well, there's some calculations and some like companies saying, like 50 years, some say a little bit longer, but it really depends. And also you have to take into account that, for example, 80% of the trees that are planted are never, so like
really
20, yeah, of course it's like, it's like nature, and then I don't know, like animal eating trees, and some are too dry, or it's like so many trees are not really going to make it. So it's also the critics around this topic, because you don't really know how much carbon emissions you're really going to compensate and offset at the end. And as a brand, you also have to ask yourself, why are you doing it, or what is the benefit you really want to take out? Yesterday, I read about Patagonia, because, we just spoke about it so much now, but it makes sense. They changed their target from 2025 to 2040 now to be carbon neutral, because they said, the offsetting issue is more complicated than we thought, and we can't do it in a way where we feel comfortable right now. And I feel like many brands feel about offsetting in this way right now. For example, in the European Union, you could have said earlier, if you offset, I'm carbon neutral. That's not something you can say so easily nowadays, because, policies change, regulations are changing, the laws changing. So you have to really precise what you're doing right now. So the value of offsetting is a little bit difficult right now. Also, then the projects that can do this is like very limited at the end. If I would recommend something, is like, try to reduce your carbon footprint as much as possible. And then there will be like a little bit of rest. And this is something you can look for a project that is like really connecting to your values. This is interesting to your company somehow, that you really also understand, because I also feel like many brands are trying to enter the offsetting market. I don't really understand what the project is really doing. So that's why I feel like, try to reduce your carbon footprint first, and then the rest you can offset, but look for a project that is really interesting to your brand and your values of your brand.
Do you have an example of a brand which has chosen a project which was interesting in this manner?
Well, actually, Apple is a good example, because Apple chose a project of a mangrove forest, and they were talking about this mangrove forest quite a lot, and also what is connecting to this mangrove forest. So, they picked a particular area and a particular project, and then they were talking about it. And for me, it didn't feel like a random choice. And I think that makes it so important, because mangroves actually are one of the trees that storing carbon emissions, are sequestering carbon emissions the most. So this is a really valuable tree. And that's why it's so interesting to invest in this kind of carbon sequestration and in this kind of projects at the end, because it's very effective. And the way they spoke about it in their report was, for me, quite a good example. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Apple does anything without focus and effectively executing it. Let's rewind a bit. And, we talked a little bit about Nayture. Let's talk about the founding story. How did you get into it? How did it all get started?
Yeah, so actually I worked in advertising for a while, and somehow happened that I worked for the president of Austria on a project. And
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's epic.
That's a really cool guy because he's from the Green Party. So he's the only leader in the European Union who's from the Green Party. And so it also happened that I used to work for the Green Party. And to be honest, I never had contact with the Greens before. And I also was not so conscious about sustainability. And, I don't know, it was like a party for me, but nothing that I was thinking, to work for. So, and these election campaigns were really interesting because at this point, the Greens were not in the parliament, so the election before was really bad for them. Yeah, so we did the election again, like the campaign for the new election, and they got the result in history basically. And it was really cool, and it was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. Election campaigns in general are interesting. But if you talk about sustainability and values and social justice, it's even more different because you have to be really precise what you're saying, and you have to stick to the facts, and you have to find ways to attract people to these kind of values.
Okay, so with Nayture, you work with the president of Austria, which is crazy. I didn't even realize the Greens party actually made it into power like that. It doesn't really happen. I haven't seen it in New Zealand either or in Australia. And so then you founded Nayture, and you've come up with this green brand code, which I thought was really interesting. And so there's like 8 categories there. I'd love for you to tell us what the categories are and then dive into it, because I think that'll be a useful thing for people to know.
Yeah, well, when we started Nayture, I thought like, okay, we have to find out, what is sustainability and like how can we help companies. And what we first discovered, there are like for us like 3 categories of companies. So you have the companies that doing basics, we call that the mandatory. So they do the policies, the laws, the regulations, things they have to do, disclosure right now. And so they do the basics. So in the second category, there are companies that are doing a little bit more. So there's what we call reputation maintenance, which is basically stakeholder satisfaction. So they do a little bit more, but like things that are coming from the stakeholders, like employees, customers, investors, they demand a little bit more than just the basics. And then on the top, you have the leaders, like the companies that are really seeing sustainability as a business opportunity, or thinking, okay, we have to have sustainability in our core business somehow. And these kind of companies follow a certain formula, what we call the green brand code. This is like the DNA, and these are the 8 categories what we discovered, and thought like, okay, in these 8 categories, this company are really performing very well at the end. Yeah. And there are some things that are not so surprising. Like, for example, they really have a good purpose. This is not something that they write somehow on the wall. They really stick to their purpose, and they feel like, okay, this is a very important part of their company. They are often first movers, for example. So because they solve an issue that is somehow new to us, and they find a solution for this kind of issue, they are like first movers. Like, let's take an example of Beyond Meat. They were like the ones, or like Impossible Food, they were the ones that are creating vegan products that really tasted like meat, for example. That's a good one. Or even Good Meat, which goes even a step further and saying, okay, we're creating meat from the laboratory, which really is like cell-based meat, and it's this real meat, but no animal ever had to die for this food at the end. And so they have a strong purpose. They first movers. They create somehow a new category. So a good example for this would be Tony's Chocolates, a chocolate company from the Netherlands, that are saying, oh, we focus on slave-free chocolate. And if you think about it, it's like, oh, slave-free chocolate? I
didn't realize my chocolate had slaves.
Yeah, that's, this is interesting because it's like they talk about modern slavery, which is actually a really important topic, but you don't have it on your mind, right? It's like, just like you said, it's like, oh, wow, it's like slavery in my chocolate. And also for them, it's a really good kind of positioning, because they think our chocolate is slave-free. So everyone who's saying just we sell chocolate has somehow, I don't know, working with slaves at the end, right? So this is from their side. They created a new kind of category at the end.
The slaves are just Oompa Loompas in Charlie's Chocolate Factory.
This is actually, the other day I read something about this topic, because someone was saying it's like, actually it's like, if you think about the Oompa Loompas, this is like actually slave work. And if you think about it, actually has somehow a point if you look into the novel at the end. Yeah. But coming back to Tony's Chocolonis, they really focus on this kind of mission. And if you look at the product, it makes it so interesting now. So one bar of Tony's Chocolonis has like very different pieces. So nothing is really equal. So every piece in this bar has a different size. And so they want to demonstrate the inequality that is in this market at the end. So this is really cool also that you find this kind of mission and the way they think in the product itself without like pointing too much on it and saying, oh, so they still make it enjoyable for you as a consumer, but also educate about what is actually happening in this space.
That's awesome. It kind of ties back to earlier where you're like, well, they're doing the not quite sustainable thing, but they have this purpose. But actually, the fact I didn't know that about, I have had Tony's chocolates and they are irregular, right? They're not in this grid shape. They're like wavy lines. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you know what, this would be hilarious. My sister and I aren't so young anymore, but when you're children and you're like trying to perfectly share the right, like you don't want to give your sibling any more than 50%. You're like you're measuring juice glasses. You're like, is it exactly the same? Like trying to share that with your sibling would be a nightmare. And then you'd be like, why is it? Then you learn. So
yeah, that's true. That's right. And also this is what green brands do a lot. They are good educators. So one of the categories being an educator. And if you think about, Oatly, there's like teaching about carbon emissions and the carbon emissions of the dairy industry. That's what green brands basically do. If you look into the Patagonia on the website, for example, and look into the supply chain stories, I think they have like over 100 content pieces just around the supply chain. And it's really interesting how they talk about it and how really they try to educate you with how difficult, for example, it is to produce this product. And that's why these materials are so valuable at the end.
100%. Awesome.
They also are activists somehow, they really try to make a change and doing it in a way that normal corporations would never do that, for example. If you also look at the meta library of Patagonia, you also see all the ads that supporting activist groups around the environmental or social justice. It's really interesting, and you see how much effort and also money they put in, raise awareness about a certain topic. And this also makes something that green brands are really pioneering at the end. And I think when we come to the end, it's like more about the category of premium. So green brands are always like a kind of in the premium area. So this is also called green premium. And what I feel really excited about is like they find always a good angle to deal with this green premium. So you have a cool brand from Australia called Who Gives a Crap, and they produce toilet paper. So what they say is, for toilet paper, we shouldn't use virgin paper, right? Because it's like the lifespan of toilet paper is very, very short. So really, there's no reason to use virgin paper. So what they do is like they just use recycled paper or bambus at the end. And because they use different materials, the product is like more expensive than normal toilet paper. Like here in Germany, it's like 100% almost. So it's like this becomes a luxury product, and we're talking about toilet paper.
Yeah. So do you mean it's like twice as expensive as normal toilet paper?
Right, yeah. And what they do is basically putting paper around the toilet paper but it's colorful and really nice paper. It looks very, fancy, very hipster somehow. Luxurious. If you certain product lines that do it in black and white, it's a really beautiful product at the end. We're talking about toilet paper. So I once went to the bathroom at a friend's house, and I saw this toilet paper. I said, "Oh wow, this is so cool!" And that's how I got to use to know the brand at the end, because I went to the bathroom at a friend's house, and I was like, "Oh, this is like really cool." Yeah, this is almost like a statement at the end, and so they found a way to produce a product that has obviously a green premium, but also make it so interesting that people are willing to pay this green premium. And I think this is the beauty of it. And if you look at Veja, for example, they found a different way. So they said 70% of the costs of creating a sneaker is due to advertising. So if we're eliminating the advertising part, we can produce a better product with better materials. So they have a new no advert policy. So they don't do any advertising, no kind of.
You say 70%? 70%
They
of the
say
cost of the product.
70%. No, they
Oh
say
my God.
70% of a sneaker is due to advertising. And so they don't do any ads. They just do content for their website, of course, but nothing else. And so that's why they can produce a sneaker which has the same price as one from Nike or Adidas, but different, better materials at the end. Yeah. And this is interesting. So the green premium is, of course, important because you have different materials you produce in a different way. But what I feel really excited about is like how they deal at the end with this kind of product, or issue.
100%.
And I
Tesla,
really,
very similar. It's like, all right, you're paying more because of, it's a cutting edge green product, but also it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
it's really cool.
It's the who gives a crap of cars. And it's
Yeah,
just like, if you haven't seen a Tesla before and you see it, you're like, what? Like, it's just so different and it's so slick.
yeah, yeah. The other day I went to, I think it was a shopping mall, and they displayed the new Porsche, which is like there's one Porsche which is an electric car. I think I don't know, the Taycan, Porsche Taycan or Tycoon. I don't know. Anyways, it's a beautiful car. It's a really beautiful car. So to be honest, for German electric cars, it's stunning. Because I feel like many electric cars here in Germany or from German brands are like, why? Why?
Why?
Why? Yeah. So the Porsche is beautiful. It's a beautiful car. And it was the first time that I saw like crowd around this car, looking at this car and making pictures. And I felt like, oh, that's how it should be. You should be attracted to this product. And they don't do it in a way that saying, oh, this is our eco line or something. It's like, well, we want to create a really beautiful car. And well, the engine is different at the end, but it's a beautiful car, and that's how you attract people to more sustainable, environmental conscious products at the end.
100%. We got showing face, another one of the categories
Yeah.
of the green brand code.
It's true. So if you look at these brands, they have like the founders or the CEO of a company, it's really invested in this idea or product, or like, it's like an advocate for sustainability and is talking about it quite a lot. So it's not an anonymous brand or like a product, but someone who puts a face to it and is really representing and also taking responsibility for what this brand is doing at the end. Right.
Yeah, 100%. Like when I think of Shell, I'm like, who runs Shell? I have no idea.
Who runs Shell? Yeah, right. So, but like there's one example which is quite controversial, maybe. But if you look at BlackRock, and BlackRock is the biggest investment company in the world. Of course, they're investing into the fossil fuel industry. But Larry Fink is writing a letter to the CEOs every year and is talking about purpose a lot. Not just he's talking about purpose, but he's talking about sustainability more and more and more and more. And now you could say it's like, I don't want to say BlackRock is a green brand, but they transitioning towards sustainability. And for one reason only, because he's saying it's going to be so expensive to deal with the consequences of the climate crisis, and our economy is not prepared for this. Yeah, we have to change our products towards sustainable ideas and innovations just because we are not capable to deal with these consequences of the climate crisis or the climate disaster at the end. And pointing out different, examples, like, rivers are going to be so dry that we can't use them to transport goods anymore. So, he has a point. So he's advocating for sustainability, but for a different reason. It's not like I want to create a good world, but it's like more about we have to change just because we won't be able to deal with what is coming. And if you look from this perspective, he's also like an advocate for sustainability, which I find very interesting. Yeah.
That's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. River's so dry we can't transport goods. And like when you think of
this,
crazy.
Yeah, you have this right now, sometimes in summer already.
Really?
So, yeah, here in Germany, if you have the Rhine, for example, it's like sometimes it's the water is so low that you can't use it for transportation of goods anymore. So boats have to stop.
Whoa. And then when I think to your shipping report, where I think this is one of the other categories, education, where I think Veja, actually I have it in front of me, 81% of their shipping was by boat, and that only accounted for 5% of their carbon.
Yeah.
And then 19% of their shipping was by air, and that accounted for 95% of their carbon. And you're like, well, if your rivers are running dry, then you can't use boats as much, and then now you get more carbon, and it's just a vicious cycle. It's not a good flywheel.
Yeah, it's true. It's also a good example from Veja, because like there's something I really didn't know before, and they were educating about this topic of transportation at the end. Yeah. And you see how important it is, how we transport goods.
And it's way more expensive as well. I don't know what the prices are like now, but I have a friend where they with a fitness brand where they sell at-home fitness equipment, and he's like, yo, air freight was like 4 times the price, maybe 5 times the price of shipping by boat. And sure, it's like, it's faster, but like it's literally 5 times the price. And you talk about advertising premium, well, there's a air freight premium as well, and it all just starts to add up.
Yeah, it's true. It's really about like the materials, the way you produce, the supply chain, and the workers. It's really interesting, and we are so competitive that we always try to build a product that is cheaper, faster, better performance, but competing on sustainability, or like trying to build something that is lasting very long, for example. This is a new way of competition, I think, that we will see in the future way more often.
100%. Can we talk about some of the work you've done? Maybe because this is more a retail sort of focused podcast. You got, is it Meat Ticken Unkaten? Have I said that at all right? Is that one of the brands you? Yeah.
This is a beautiful company, which means, mit Ecken Kanten is German for means like with products with edges, basically. What they do is they selling beeware, so products that have like a manufacturing issue, but from sustainable brands already. Because they say, it's beautiful, because they say, well, everything has still a purpose, right? So, and every product is still good enough for someone, and we try to find the very someone for this product. And the CEO of this company heard about the green brand code and felt like, oh, this is very interesting and can help us with us, like in terms of positioning and in terms of making something more outstanding, maybe. So we worked together and found so many things in each category of the green brand code, what this brand actually could do at the end. So we defined what is the category they are. For example, at the end, they came up with the idea to say, we're celebrating imperfection, and which I found is beautiful. And when you think about it, to celebrating a category of imperfection, you can also talk about people and how imperfect I am.
Oh, it's so true. Like you go to a shop and you see all these apples, and I'm like, all these apples can't be this beautiful. Where are you hiding your ugly apples? And so now there's a place to sell these premium, slightly faulty. Honestly, what is it like? The box is like slightly dented, and they're like, we can't sell this. And it's like, it's the box. It's not even the actual product. Just sell it. But they can't, right? So that's such a cool
and
business.
also, if you think about it, it's like weird at the end, right? Because there's nothing like perfect. So what is really perfect if you think about it? So it's also about people. You say all the time, I try to be the most perfect version of myself, but at the end, what does it actually mean to be perfect? There's nothing like perfect. And also, if it comes to products at the end, so what is perfect? And I remember when I once bought a coffee machine. I was so in love with this coffee machine. Like, I can do my own espresso, and it's beautiful. It's like a chrome coffee machine, so it's very shiny and nice. So I remember that after a couple of weeks, I cleaned it with the wrong side of the swamp, and I made the first scratches in the surface of the coffee machine. And I felt like, now it's not not perfect anymore. But it's still it's like, I get my coffee every day from this coffee machine, and I feel so grateful if I have this coffee. So it's about, it's, I don't know, this company in saying, we're the first imperfect shop in Germany, made me think about so many things about, myself and the perception of perfection.
Yeah, 100%. You get like the older generation, you'd go around to their house, the grandparents or something, and they'd have the couches, and the couches would be covered with plastic, and you're like,
Yeah.
Why is it covered with plastic? And it's like to protect it. And it's like, well, you got to use the thing, and then with using it, you got to accept that, you know, there'll be some wear and tear, and that doesn't, as you say, like, it doesn't make it less perfect. If anything, it makes it more personalized, and now there's a story attached to it. It's now your thing. Before, it was just a thing from the factory. Now it's got some imperfection. You've left your mark on it, and now, you know, maybe you pass that coffee on to the next of kin, the coffee machine, and yeah, it gets to have its own story.
What I really love about this brand or this company, that I really try to make this brand narrative alive on every touch point. So if you get a product from them, they send you, let's say, a yoga mat. Yeah, they send it to you to your home. You don't get a perfect package. So what they use is some packages from I think it's a coffee company or something next door, that you don't use these packages anymore, and they use this one to wrap your product and then send it to you. So it doesn't look really nice when it arrives, but you know, even the package they use, I don't know, it's not perfect, but also it serves the purpose of transporting your good from A to B. And I think this is really cool if you think about how can I make my mission alive on every touch point of a customer journey.
Epic. And so when you do work with a company, or a company does their own work on, they look at the green brand code and like, cool, I want to sort of implement some of this. Or they just want to be like, hey, I want to help the environment. Like, how do you measure impact? Because that's something, you know, whenever the test is always, you know, you got to sell it to the board, right? You run a company, you got to sell it to the board, you got to sell it to the stakeholders, and then they're going to be like, cool, well, what's the impact? And it's like, well, when someone poses that question, I guess, how do you go about answering that?
There are some ways to measure impact, right? So I think first, to go a step back, is like, what do you really want to measure, and what is the impact you really want to have? I think this is the first question you have to answer somehow, because you can measure the impact of your carbon emissions, and there's some, I don't know, industry standards and data you can use to measure your carbon footprint. But also you can, I don't know, measure your pollution. So if you are, I don't know, Coca-Cola, you might want to measure your plastic pollution instead. So
yeah.
Or what is the impact on, like, social impact, for example? You know, what is the social impact of your company? So there are many things you can measure, and there are some standards and some ways and processes to measure impact. And there are like so many companies and services you can use already. Yeah, but this is, like I said, it's like the question, what do you want to have out of it at the end? You know, if it's doing like, okay, I want to reduce my carbon footprint because I have to, or because the stakeholders really want to have it, or do I don't know, want to do it for a different reason? So what we discovered is like the companies that are doing really well in this industry, or like the leaders in some kind of sustainability, they come up with new innovations that are more difficult to measure. What they do is like a kind of life cycle analysis of products, for example, which is not so much standardized right now. So this is something very individual based on the product you produce at the end. I just think this is very difficult to have like a common answer for every product right now. Yeah.
Sure, that totally makes sense. And I mean, I was gonna ask what some like low hanging fruit for brands that want to, you know, become more green or more sustainable. But again, that's going to be a very specific answer depending on the brand, right? Because it's like, well, firstly, what do you make, and then
yeah, it's true. But you could do like an analysis and find out, okay, what is my, you know, what are the areas I'm want to explore somehow. So, and then you can do like a potential analysis and say, oh, well, this is something that could be interesting also to explore like a different market or a new product line or a sub-brand maybe at the end, and then take it from there. So I think it's like more about getting some kind of orientation and then doing the next step in terms of, okay, this is an opportunity I want to follow on, for example.
Awesome. Cool. And then perhaps my final question, I saw in your LinkedIn bio, you're like, somewhere it was like, sign up for the newsletter for like mega trends in sustainability. And I was like, I just had first, like, what's a mega trend, and what are the mega trends you're seeing in sustainability?
Oh, this is really something in my LinkedIn bio. Okay,
This is right at the bottom.
I have to double check this again. Well, this is a good question. Well, there's some Of course. So if you think about food, something that is like interesting is like this kind of cell-based meat. This is like a huge industry. This is coming up and has so much potential. You have the same experience, but a less lower carbon footprint at the end. So this is interesting how this will develop and how customers will accept this kind of cell-based meat, for example. We have circularity, which is an important part. Yeah, what are the products and ideas around circularity, which I think could be more interesting in the future. You have everything which is like offsetting. We're talking about it before. So what are more science-based and proven ways to offset carbon emissions, which will be more interesting in the future. Also for, especially like for retailers, who say, okay, we want to have like a product that has in the overall calculation no carbon in it anymore. So how can we offset, and what's a way that we do it in the right way at the end? So I think these are like the trends that are somehow very close. So the circularity, offsetting, food, EVs, like everything is transportation related. It's going to be more interesting. And then, of course, you have some things that are a little bit more into the future. So, for example, how we deal with plastic pollution. So this is something that is still not solved, and there's so much to explore. But there's still some signs of hope. So, for example, like 1 or 2 weeks ago, scientists found like a way to deconstruct plastic at the end with this, like a enzyme, and which were like very promising. So this is something that is research right now, but nothing that can companies pick up right now. So, but this is something, I don't know, could be interesting in 10, 15 years, for example.
Yeah, totally. If they could make a bacteria which eats plastic as its fuel source, then that's a sci-fi movie, and we'd be very lucky.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have any final points about, so thinking about our audience, retailers, people who before this podcast perhaps didn't know that much about sustainability, and now they're sort of intrigued by it. Any final points for them? And if not, for the ones which are intrigued, where can they find you and how do they reach out to you?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's a great opportunity to work in sustainability right now in general. This is something, what we can say for sure, this is a topic that is not going to go anywhere. So this is staying. And if you think about digitalization, this is like now sustainability right now. So if you think back, there were like a company once that, we use the internet to sell books, and now it's Amazon. So, and you have companies like Patagonia right now said, we think sustainability is important, and now they are valued like $3 billion right now because they attract a certain target group at the end. So sustainability is not going anywhere right now. So it's the perfect time to pick up and to explore what are the possibilities and how can, take my brand onto the next level. Because like we ask ourselves right now, why is this process not digitalized right now? So I do have to fill out a paper or something. Maybe we will ask ourselves in 10 years, why is this still virgin plastic and not recycled plastic or something? I think it's really important to catch up, not just because of the environment and of the planet, but also because customers and clients and consumers will demand it in a very short amount of time. Yeah.
Just on that point, I remember, our government in New Zealand banned plastic bags a number of years ago, and I'm not a huge fan of that because people just buy the reusable bags, which if you look at like the environmental costs, you need to use like 100 plastic bags to offset one of those plastic bags, and it's like often you forget it, you end up with like 10 of them. And you're like, well, I was never going to use 1,000 plastic bags, and now I have 10 of these things, which I keep forgetting and having to get. And that's where it's like the government did something which to the public looks like, you're like, oh, we're being green. And it's like, actually what you should have done as a government was tax virgin plastic, and then that would be way more. But people don't even know that that's a thing. It makes me happy that, however many listeners we have, at least now they'll be aware that, hey, that's actually a thing. And now they can go out and demand that from the people in charge. And, let's have recycled plastic because why not? I made some art actually a while back with recycled plastic. And like, obviously it looks different, but it it has its own shape and it looks cool. I'll send you some stuff after this. But yeah, that I think it was worth just touching on the virgin plastic versus recycled plastic. Sorry, continue. Where can people find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way I think is like nayture.com with Y, so Nay, and I don't know, follow also on LinkedIn maybe. I think we try to publish now a report every month about a case study, about a blueprint, like we said, about, I don't know, sustainable brands. And I think there's so much to explore still. So, yeah.
100%. And I can vouch and say those studies are very worthwhile. I've read them both and I'm like, firstly, it's just well designed. Like sometimes you read white papers and you're like, it's just painful to get to the end of it because there's like so much text. Whereas this, it's just formatted really nicely and it's like, it's fun to read. If you can educate people and they can have a good time, that's, I think you've ticked all the boxes.
Yeah. On this point also, we tried, of course, to use our green brand code on ourselves. And for example, I'm really in love with this corporate identity of Nayture, because the briefing was to the wonderful people that made the corporate identity at the end to say, okay, don't use green for this consultancy. Don't use something that, looks like an eco brand or something. We wanted to have something that looks very mature. So we came up with the colors of the elements. So fire, water, air and soil, and use this kind of colors to give nature the corporate entity at the end. And I feel like this is also a very nice way to demonstrate that we care about nature, but don't have to use green in the corporate entity at the end. Yeah.
That's cool. I'm gonna relook at all the brand stuff with that new lens of the colors, because that's awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for joining me on the StrutFit Show. And yeah, I learned a lot about sustainability. I thought I knew a little bit about sustainability. Now I know a lot more. And hopefully everyone who's tuned in has also learned a fair bit.
Great. Thank you so much. It was very lovely to speak to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the StrutFit Show. I've been your host, Nayyar. And if you enjoyed it, if you found some parts where you were like, this has added some value to my life, then please share it with a few other people that you think would also value this information or that snippet. And when they like it as much as you did, I'm sure they'll thank you. If you're interested in what we're doing at StrutFit, head to our website at www.strut.fit to learn more and get in touch with us. If you want to get in contact with me directly, you can reach me at ang@strut.fit. All right, that's all, folks. Till next time, take care.